couldn't imagine setting a movie in Mexico without trying to use that in some way, because I certainly feel it's part of the culture there. And I was trying to capture the culture of that.
And didn't you shoot some of that before we got there? Because the bullfighting season had ended by the time we got down there, so you had already done some of that.
Yeah, we never really shot at a live bullfight. We shot some second unit at a bullfight, and then we had extras there at an empty stadium. It was a complicated rigmarole to be able to actually make it seem like a seamless sequence without us ever really going to a bullfight.
Yeah.
And the people, I mean, the people of Mexico, the technicians and the artistic community down there very much embraced us. We came in under the radar without too much falderall, etc. We had a press conference to, you know, to let people know what we were doing and just say that we were very happy to be in the city. It was a joy from beginning to end, and the commitment and the passion of the filmmakers down there towards our endeavors was all embracing, and
we loved it down there. It was the nicest people, wild, interesting, beautiful, scary, lovely, good and bad. That energy really helped the movie enormously, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we had David Tattersall was somebody who came on board at the very beginning, and I'd worked with him on the Bond film, and he read the script. So when he stepped up to the mark, that was a huge accomplishment for us as filmmakers, because what he brings to the palette as a director of photography was enormous, and the relationship with Richard and he was great to see develop.
There are also quite a few very good technicians in Mexico within the industry. Yeah. Great crews, yeah. And there's a whole past to the Mexican film industry.
Mm-hmm. It's extraordinary. Mexico has had a long history of great film industry, and it died out for a while, and now it's coming back with full vengeance. There's a lot of great filmmakers down there, and certainly our crew was seasoned beyond belief and had been working on movies since the 50s and 40s, some of them, and amazing. One of our art department guys was in his 80s and had been making movies in Mexico since the 1940s. I mean, and he was amazing. So I think we really got a kick out of meeting all of those people, and they couldn't have been more lovely to us.
The lady here and the lady there.
Hi, Tricia Wilson, Jarrett Rogers Television. What I did really love about the movie is what you gentlemen have been talking about. It really is character-driven. It is not about big car chases and fights, and I just love that. And it clearly wouldn't have worked as well if the two of you hadn't been enjoying one another. It was very obvious that you were enjoying what was happening on the screen. Could you talk a little bit about your experience of...
They enjoyed in ways we can't even talk about publicly.
Can you talk a little bit about your experience of working together?
Football game this week?
Can you talk about your experience of working together, what you learned from each other, and what your most favorite sequences were to shoot together?
Well, I think the bar sequence, you know, when we first encounter that on the page is, you know, yeah. Just watching him and knowing that I'm going to say, you know, margaritas and it was funny to do, and it was kind of sad, you know, and to see Greg, you know, kind of dig in there and tell his story as the character.
And the whole film was shot in Mexico City, and all the Denver sequence and even the Tucson, you know, racetrack, all that's there as well. So the Denver sequence, we went to a town kind of outside of Mexico City, and they redid this, you know, house to look like a Denver suburb. I don't know how. Yeah. To this day, but it's pretty fantastic. But that whole thing was done at a stage, and that was great because we had been shooting for a while and having a great time, and then all of a sudden Hope Davis, you know, enters the sequence, and she was, you know, she adds like a whole nother dimension to, I think, the relationship that Julian and Danny have. And, you know, that's such a charged thing because when that happens, when those three people come together, you don't know who has what information. And everybody's kind of playing their own chess game in that. And that scene as well is very well written and just kind of great fun to do. So I don't know. I remember it all being pretty good, though. It was there were no days where I was like, oh, we got to go shoot that.
with him.
Yeah.
The lady over there, then the gentleman here.
Gloria
there I am.
Martin, 680 News. Good morning, good afternoon. Could all three of you comment, please, on why you think big Hollywood movies have recently taken a downturn at the box office?
Well, I think the economy is in trouble in America, and gas prices are so expensive, and most people don't have a lot of disposable income, especially when they're paying $3 or $4 for gas. And if you're going to look at your Friday night and going to the movies and renting a movie or getting something off of cable, I think people are saying, unless it's super interesting, I'm going to choose to do that. I think it's a combination of the products being made, which is sometimes not so challenging, and which is why these actors want to do something that was a little different, because they understand that there's just a little too much of the same out there. And the fact that people's disposable income, you know, it's not cheap to go to the movies. That's my opinion. You asked.
I was just going to say I think the DVD issue, releasing the movie will be on DVD in 11 weeks. Sit tight, and I think that's been so obvious, I think, to me, but I could be wrong. Can't say it. Go ahead.
No, but pushing it one notch further, Steven Soderbergh is planning on releasing a film in the theaters, on DVD, and on television, on pay-per-view the same day. So where does that take us? Where does that take you guys?
Start releasing movies before you release them. That's really the ticket. Then you got a business. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about? That's right. I guess somebody has already found that business, right?
Absolutely. On the 145th Street, you can find anything you want.
I bought a copy of this movie down on Bloor Street about 10 minutes
Oh,
ago.
it's fantastic. Colors, beautiful.
It also seems to be very onto the game, the audience, and they want more, they demand more, and as an actor, you find the imagination and the creativity in the independent world. And you find the players that you really kind of will kind of juice you up, turn you on, and hopefully make people go see your movie. So.
But since we're about, quote unquote, the state of the industry, what state is the Irish industry in at this point? There isn't any? Is there going to be one?
Well, there's the most magnificent studio sitting there called Ardmore Studio, and it's dark. And yet they have the greatest talent, the greatest writers, and it's just doesn't seem to be happening there. Again, the economy.
But is there anything the likes of you can do?
Beaumaris and myself have created this company called Irish Dreamtime, and we've made 5 films, and 3 of those films were made there. The Nephew, Evelyn, and Laws of Attraction. And we formed the company with the intention to go back there as often as possible, and for me as an Irish actor, to find projects from the homeland, which we could put our shoulder behind.
Sir, and then the gentleman behind you.
Yeah, Stephen Ashton from Film Festival Reporter and Film Vision. Hey.
Hey.
Man, fantastic film.
Thank
all
you.
All of you guys. Really, really beautiful. And I have one particular question for you, Richard. That for me, this film hangs together because of really one key scene and almost the last reel of the film, where we finally find out actually what happened after the knock on the door. And that transports this film into a totally beyond any genre. And it seems to me that ties the entire character of each of these guys, gives humanity to the whole situation. It's beautifully done. Can you tell me about the source and origin of that scene and how that works for you?
Well, thank you. And the whole time I was writing the script, I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't have an outline. It's the first time I've written that way. It got so bad at one point that I put the script away for 6 months and picked it back up and wrote 6 months later, which is why that happens in the movie. But I was purposely trying to go in a direction. Every time I expected to go left, I chose to go right to see what would happen. And I didn't know if that was going to work out or not, but I just didn't want to fall into what would be the most obvious choice. And by that nature, I think it keeps the tension level up because you're afraid of a certain type of ending, but it didn't turn out that way. And, you know, I wanted what Julian did for Danny to be his humanity. His humanity is born. His humanity is born at the moment, and his job of killing people is dying. He can't do it anymore because he's got a heart he never knew he had. And so it was all character. The whole movie was character driven. It was character driven when I started to write it. It was character driven when I cast these sort of actors in it. And that moment, storytelling-wise, was character driven as well.
And Pierce, did that scene, when you were seeing the script initially, did that scene have kind of a moment of really solidifying your idea to do this film?
I had many moments where I connected with the humanity of the character, his adriftness in life, his rudderless, psychopathic state. You go through this story as a reader, and you come to the conclusion at the end that they find peace of life and some kind of harmony of life. And I you know, Richard wrote it with real heart. You can't help but love these characters, and I loved it as the reader, and I loved playing it and seeing it as an audience now. It has a kind of, I don't know, a certain cinematic alchemy to it. It's no longer ours now. It has a life of its own. But it comes from the heart and the mind of Richard.
Sir, and then the lady.
This character is funny in the same way a lot of the other characters you've played are. However, and I want to get Richard to maybe speak about the emotional sort of element. Like, where did you guys draw the line? And did you find yourself having to say, okay, you know, he's getting too funny? Because, I mean, I laughed my butt off in watching this movie. But did you ever find, you know, too funny, we need to cut some stuff out and maybe bring it back to the human element that is really runs like a thread throughout that whole movie?
Not really. I mean, Richard wrote the text, and we said the text as written. I think I only ad-libbed one line, and that was the last line in the movie for my character. We didn't do great analysis of what we were going to do. We sat and we talked, and we went through the scenes. The scenes are 12-page scenes, 10-page, 15-page scenes. So you have a certain sense of performance there to give, which was the joy of it. It was almost like a play.
Well, one of the things we talked about early on was, is Julian so irredeemable that people aren't going to like him and thus not like the movie? And one of the things I kept saying was, everything Pierce does has so much heart in it that I don't think it's going to be a problem. I think it may take a little while, but that's good. We shouldn't just necessarily instantaneously have you love this guy. He's a troubled guy. He's a mean guy. And it will take a little while. But the humanity, honestly, in his acting and in Greg's acting and Hope's, they are real people. And so it wasn't really a problem. The comedy works more because there's humanity. Otherwise, you're just the straight-ahead comedy. We tried to mix it up. You know, I mean, that was the idea. I mean, that's why one scene can be very emotional. We can hear a story about a dead child, and then almost a moment later, he's telling the world's dirtiest joke.
That's actually kind of a shock when you see the movie.
I wanted to have, this was the moment where you realize that he has never had a conversation, a real conversation with anyone. Because anyone, even if you didn't even care about the person, if you heard them say something about a dead child, you would at least have an I'm sorry or anything. That's the normal human reaction. And here was a perfect opportunity for just that. And he was incapable of doing it, and he knew it. Which is why the next scene where he walks to the lobby is more than just a funny sight gag. He's emotionally a mess because he knows somewhere in the back of his head that that's what he should have done. He's just incapable of it because he hasn't done it. So